Croeso, this is James, aka JP Harker, coming to you with the first video in a while. For those of you who didn't know, I became a parent in the middle part of last year, and apparently that takes up one's time. Who would have thought it? It's been an experience, and this is one of the few afternoons where the boy isn't around to make his noise and all of that jazz. So I thought I would do my first video in a while. And I complain about him, yes, he's lovely and all of that, and, you know, cute and baby and all of that stuff, but for the purposes of making videos and writing books, he does have remarkably little patience for my needs, and I think that's, that's very selfish of him. But there we go. This is going to be a short video of a book that I'm bringing out later this year, probably in July. I haven't set the date yet because I'm working through the various machinations that I have to make these things happen. Again, having the boy, who is lovely and we love very much, doesn't help when trying to organise these things, so hopefully July though. I have my copy here, but I haven't officially released the cover yet, so I shall sort of give you a little teaser type hint of what it may look like. Keep an eye on my various social media for what it will end up with. And this one's got that not for resale across, which just makes it look rubbish. The book is QuietThunder, and it's not part of the Caledon saga, but it takes place in the same world at around the same time. It's set shortly after Wildcat, so I think about 6 or 7 years post the end of Wildcat, because there's a time jump in Wildcat. And it covers a tribe called the Catuvani, who are at the other end of Daria, which is that continent. And while Wildcat was looking at the Gaian Empire trying to invade and our tribes trying to resist and that clash, this book, the Catuvani are an occupied tribe. They've been an occupied nation for several generations, and from their perspective they don't need to be warlike anymore. They don't need warriors and gathering. They don't even need a chieftain, because they are living safely under the Empire's protection. And anything bad that happens, it's okay, the legions will protect us. Unfortunately, nearby, there is an unconquered tribe that has a rather different view on things and would like to liberate the Catuvani, whether the Catuvani want to be liberated or not. And it's loosely based on the idea of the Picts and the Brigante and what would have happened if the sort of garrison at Hadrian's Wall hadn't really been a thing, if they'd been complacent, and if the pseudo-Romanized nations of what later became England were to be forcefully liberated by the Picts, which is now Scotland. And that's where the idea came from, anyway. So I thought I would read a short section, just to give you a taste of it, and I shall be keeping you posted as to when the book itself is actually out. Keep this cover hidden. Yes, I am using a different camera today. Okay. QuietThunder, Prologue. A watchman who spent his time warming his hands was just asking for an opened throat. Randon approached the fire slowly, his mud-blackened blade held low and ready, and fought to hold back his grin. These damned Gaians had always been so confident, so damned arrogant, and now they were going to pay for it. The young Syrian made no sound as he crept in closer, all but invisible in the darkness of the night. Like his father, Randon had sworn not to grow his beard until the Gaian city fell, so he had covered his whole face in river mud, and soaked his golden hair until it hung dank and lank to his shoulders. He'd have preferred to wear war paint, of course, to draw the eyes of the gods and strike terror into his foes, but now was the time for practicality. Besides, Tara knows who I am. He will look down on me and smile on what I do tonight. Lay was shining full in the sky above them, but the woodland canopy was thick enough to block out most of her silvery light. The Gaians before him would have struggled to see Randon, even had they been watchful men. Tonight, with their faces to the fire, the lazy fools were making themselves night-blind. The tribesman's eyes stayed fixed ahead as he moved closer, slow and steady and silent in the dark. 2 of the Gaians were awake, talking quietly with steaming tin cups in their hands, while the other 5 men of the patrol lay snoring beneath their cloaks. Randon felt contempt mix in with his hate. The legionaries were out here for one reason and one reason only, to watch over the estuary for men like him trying to cross. And they don't even take the trouble to stray from their cozy fire. The complacent dogs just sat and chattered in their queer foreign tongue, simply begging for a Sarian to walk up there and bleed them like stuck pigs. When Randon spotted movement from the other side of the fire, he knew the time had come, and he struck without making a sound. He wrapped one arm around the Gaian's chin and hauled back hard, clamping the soldier's mouth shut and stretching out his neck. The Sarian bared his teeth as his muddy blade ripped through soft Gaian flesh, sending the invader's blood spraying out to sizzle in the fire. Across from him, Balor's bone-handled knife opened the other Gaian's throat, and the big man held the bastard fast as his life gushed from his body. Randon did the same as he looked over at his war leader. It was hard not to stare at him in admiration. Balor, the Black Hound, was to most warriors as a wolf was to a kitten. Though Randon himself was tall and strong, Balor stood half a head taller than him and was built all of dense bone and lean muscle. His hair and beard were black as night and braided through with countless rings, some iron, some silver, some gold. Though he'd muddied his face like the others, Randon knew that beneath the filth, Balor wore a Gadarim's red tattoos across his cheek, so that Taran and the other gods would never lose sight of him in battle. Not that they ever could. Balor was practically a god himself. Handsome, strong, and terrible, he was the mightiest man Randon had ever known, the greatest warrior of a warlike tribe. The giant nodded his approval at Randon and beckoned at the trees with the hand which held his knife. More Sarii appeared from the woods and began butchering the sleeping Gaians. Randon had to admit he felt a little strange as he watched them do it. He'd killed men before, of course. He was a man of the Sarii and past 20 winters old, but he had never killed like this before. Randon's other kills had all been by day and in open battle with rival clans, fighting sword to sword beneath the golden light of Belanos, not knifing men at night, with only Silver Lay to look down on him. He thought of the sword hanging sheathed at his hip. Tonight, Havoc had remained clean, and his dagger had been blackened with mud. Randon blinked and shook his head. There was no wrong in this. These damned invaders would not think twice about killing outside of battle. Besides, Balor had ordered it done, and that alone was enough to convince Randon that it was right. Balor is of the Gadarim. If a warrior brotherhood say that this is war, then it is war. The man himself was still holding the dying Gaian, and the big Gadarim cupped a hand under the wound. There was little blood left to catch, but it was enough, and he let the body drop as he put the hand to his mouth and drank. It was too dark to see the red, but Balor's black beard soon glistened in the flickering light. The others gathered close to their leader, and he closed his eyes. It was well known that the blood of a fresh kill could sometimes grant visions, and the first kill of a new war would be the most sacred of all. The gods were fickle in what they gave, of course, and normally granted visions only to blood speakers. But Balor was the finest Gadarim of their tribe, and if anyone could expect to be made an exception, it would be the mighty Black Hound. Randor watched as his eyes twitched back and forth under the lids, and Struna crept forward and whispered to their leader. "What do you see?" She was looking at Balor with something like adoration, and Randor supposed he ought to feel jealous about that. Struna was his wife after all. But Randon couldn't find it in him to care. For one thing, he had little enough love for the woman, and for another, it was hard for anyone to look at Balor and not be in awe of him. The Gadarim spoke slowly, his voice low, rich, and perfectly calm. "I saw an army of men in mail, wailing as they died. I saw a head held aloft and then spiked onto a spear point. I saw..." He opened his eyes and a small smile crept onto his mouth. "I saw tribesmen with reddened swords, calling holy Taran's name to the open sky." All around them, grinning white teeth flashed from mud-smeared faces. Balor nodded towards the dead men on the ground. "Gather up the mail shirts and put the bodies in the river." On another day that might have been a risky proposition. The estuary would carry the carcasses away, and might alert the guy in watchtowers downriver. But tonight the whole frontier would be alive with Sadii warbands, and the warning of the bodies would be too little and too late. Randon felt a gentle thrill in his gut. Let the nearest tower see their comrades' corpses. Let them tremble and know what fate awaits them. So that was a section of the prologue to QuietThunder. You've probably guessed it's from an antagonist's point of view, and hopefully that's caught some interest, and some people are thinking, "Ooh, I wonder how good the rest of it will be." It'll be just as good, if not better. But don't take my word for it. Wait till the book comes out. As I say, I don't have a final date for it yet. It's probably in July, but watch this space, and this book will be coming out soon. I've probably talked enough for now. Coming soon, QuietThunder, part of the Caledon world, but not part of the Caledon saga. Keep your eye out. This has been James, aka JP Harker. Hwyl fawr.